Little birdie in the in the dressing room tells me that you used to play with grey socks because you couldn't quite get your whites and your colours sorted.
That is true. That is true. I got my laundry wrong, and it was the only white socks we had. So sometimes they were pink, sometimes they were grey. It was embarrassing, but those were the days.
Well, hello and welcome to We Are Chelsea, the official podcast of Chelsea Women, brought to you in association with Skoda, who are the official car partner of Chelsea Women and huge and proud supporters of women's sport. Today, we're live from Stamford Bridge! I am so excited. We are recording this before the semi-final second leg against Barcelona, and I'm joined by the best and the most excitable Chelsea fans. They've already cheered, but they're going to do it again. Cheer again! I'm excited to be here. Excellent, guys. Well, tonight we're bringing you a special episode of We Are Chelsea because it's approaching the 20th anniversary of Chelsea Women's as we know it. Chelsea Ladies, as they were known back then, was a team set up in 1992 by a lifelong Chelsea fan, Tony Farmer, who is in the... There he is. There he is. Give him a cheer. Black cap, white sweater. You can all grab him. And he's slow because he's got a foot injury, so you can all grab him later. Well, he was the club's first manager and oversaw those early years in the local league right through until 1997. Not to mention giving opportunities to some pretty exciting youth players that you may have heard of. Casey Stoney and Farah Williams, just to name a couple. Chelsea Ladies, they battled through the local leagues back then until they finally became a fully integrated part of Chelsea Football Club, and that was back in 2004, which also coincided with them being promoted to the FA Premier League, as it was called back then. And that was the start of their journey to becoming the most dominant team in English football today. Yeah. Well, we've got three guests, but I'm going to welcome my first guest tonight. Let's see if you can guess who it is. She is an absolute Chelsea legend, winning 2 WSL titles and 2 FA Cups with the Blues, not to mention 102 England caps. It is Eniola Aluko! Hey!
Hi, everyone.
I haven't got loads of time with Eni, so I'm going to try and get through this. But I first of all want to know, how are you and how surprised were you at the amount of people that you saw outside?
Oh my God, I couldn't get through. I had to get someone to come and get me. It was like, wow, 2 hours before kickoff, and there's so many people outside. I always get so emotional when I see that, because once upon a time, no one cared, man. No one cared. Well, people did care. I shouldn't say that, but it was a very small group of people.
Yeah.
And to see where we are now. Even this, like live podcasts before, fans, and
I know.
It's just amazing, like to see the journey and to see how far it's come and how far much more we've got to go. Like, I just beam. I get so excited because I think we deserve it. I think the women's game, and particularly Chelsea, deserve the progression and everything that's going. So thank you to all the fans that sort of make it happen. It's just really exciting.
It is exciting. And I mean, you did see the transition because you were at the club across 2 spells. So 2007 to 2009, then you came back in 2012. Describe what the club was like when you first joined and then when you came back. And then now today, seeing it like this.
Yeah, so when I first joined Chelsea, the club was pretty much in the foundation. Shaun Gore, who you're going to be hearing from in a minute, it was the sort of manager. And yeah, it wasn't a professional league. It was very much, something that I played football alongside uni, and I remember just feeling a little bit like, I don't know where this is leading me. But we had a good team, we had a decent team, and we did our best. And then I went to America really to fulfill my dream to become a professional footballer. And then when I came back from America, I joined Chelsea, and that's when the Olympics happened, and then it kicked off, in a really good way. Emma Hayes joined in 2012, signed me, and we never looked back, in terms of the success that Emma's obviously brought to Chelsea. And, I was a big part of that for 7 years. She's still someone that has, that I listen to and has a huge influence in our careers. And, I'm just so grateful to have been part of the success that's led us to this place now. It's crazy. It's because just being in the Champions League was an objective, right? Which, for the first 2-3 years, we just wanted to be in it, like just play one game. Yeah. And now it's like, right, okay, we're playing at Stamford Bridge, and it's like you're playing to a full stadium. Yeah. It's just it's just been an amazing journey.
Talk to me about where you trained. What was that like? And then even having to take your kit home and wash it yourself.
Yeah, so we trained at Cobham, which I always felt was like, I always felt that was better than everybody else. The fact that we trained at Cobham and you could see the men's building, but we used to train in the evenings on the AstroTurf. And as you said, we used to take our kit home, and that was very much the norm, right? Like, it wasn't sort of a professional setup. That was very much the norm. We.
What was your laundry like? Because little birdie in the dressing room tells me that you used to play with grey socks because you couldn't quite get your whites and your colours sorted.
Who's told you that? That is true. I got my laundry wrong, and it was the only white socks we had. So sometimes they were pink, sometimes they were grey. It was embarrassing, but those were the days.
And also, let's talk about the standard of the WSL. I mean, you've seen the rise. Talk to me about what it was like at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I said, post-Olympics, I think that's when everyone woke up to women's football and thought, actually, this is a good watch, and these are great players. And so I think for Chelsea, come 2012, even they, the wider club decided, okay, we're gonna take this a little bit more seriously. Yeah. I believe it came out of the foundation into the sort of the professional club. Mm-hmm. And then obviously you then have, the budgets that then come from the professional club. And then things started improving gradually, better, you can train on the pitches, you can train in the daytime and not the evenings. And gradually Emma Hayes, I think, really sort of was knocking on the door of all the, the owners and the directors to say, well, we need more, we need a gym, we need, all these things that I think in the men's game and the boys' game you take for granted. Yeah. Actually, we had to ask for everything, from laundry to, another pitch to gym equipment to, I remember the first time we were having lunch after training. Okay. And it was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, we're eating together, because we used to just train, go home, and like we'd have to sort our own nutrition out. Okay. So these are all the like little things that I think have pushed it forward to now where you have a fully professional setup, one of the best in the world. And I'm just so proud of that. I'm proud that like we've had to graft and really get everything we've got in order to be where we are now.
Well, I was going to ask you what changed in the 3 years when you were away, but it sounds like Emma kept knocking on those doors.
I think it was
and
Emma,
kept grafting.
I think it was Emma. There's no denying that Emma, obviously she's a great coach, but I think she's a visionary as well. I think she came in and went, bang, I want the best for these players, and I want to be able to attract players to the club by saying we've got this pitch and that pitch and a gym and food, and so all these things matter, because ultimately I think all of us, if you said to us when we were 10 years old, when we were just playing football for fun, we would be able to become professional footballers. That's all we ever wanted. And what that is ultimately being able to say, right, you're paid to play and you feel like a professional footballer, you don't have to worry about anything else. So all of those things Emma brought into the environment, and as a result, I think Chelsea women have really benefited from that.
Well, it's really sad that this is going to be Emma's last season.
I know.
What do you think Emma's lasting legacy will be here at Chelsea? That's a question from someone in the audience, by the way. There we go, waving at the back.
Yeah, I think incredible success.
Yeah.
You know, I'm losing count now of how many titles it's been. I think is it five titles? 4 league titles, I think it is.
Yeah.
4, yeah. Obviously FA Cups, but the legacy, I think, is success, and I think is everything I said in terms of creating an environment, a professional environment that every single footballer around the world, female footballer, goes, wow, you know, I'd love to play for Chelsea. It's taken it from, you know, a sort of semi-professional setup to now a global setup.
Yeah.
That everybody looks to as a benchmark.
I mean, I've only interviewed Emma a couple of times, and I've come away going, I need her as my personal life coach in my life.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think she is a bit of a philosopher, you know. She likes a poem, you know, and I can never forget it. When we won the FA Cup at Wembley in 2015, best day of my life. Emma gave us a poem. We gave us all a poem.
Did she?
Yeah, on the morning of the game. And I remember thinking, that's a bit niche, a bit different. And we read it and we went, oh, okay, that's, you know, motivation. But those are the things you don't forget.
Yeah.
You know, those are the things that are just so unique about Emma. No other coach is doing that. No other coach is giving poems to their players, you know.
No.
And that she's just really quirky in that way, but genuinely cares about the human being behind the player, which I don't think, certainly in my experience, not a lot of managers do that. It's just results, and it's very transactional relationship. Whereas I still speak to Emma now, and I left Chelsea a long time ago, right?
Do you?
Of course, yeah. I speak to Emma all the time, and she's honest with me. She'll say, "Annie, what you on about?" or, you know, or, "That was great."
I can believe that.
Yeah.
I can believe she's honest.
Yeah, and that's what you want, you know. Yeah. That's what you want from your mates, to be able to say, "Listen, I care about you. You were bang on there, or you were out of line there, or whatever, you know." And that's very much what she is for me. So she cares about the human being, and I think that, again, that's probably going to be part of her legacy as well.
I need to ask you, this is another audience question. What do you see the game being like in the next 10 to 20 years? I mean, you've already seen a massive change, but can you look forward? Yeah,
do you know what? I think if the last 10 years are anything to go by, it's just going to be so exciting. I think if you take a snapshot of today, this is going to be the norm. You know, a sold-out stadium for women's football, and for Chelsea, playing at, you know, Stamford Bridge, or maybe our own women's 60,000-seater stadium.
Oh,
you never know.
Let's dream.
I think this is going to be the norm. It kind of is becoming the norm.
It is, yeah.
But I think this is going to be, and I hope that, you know, we're building a fan base where the conversation becomes less about gender, and it just becomes, that is a team I want to support. That is an experience I want to have. You know, I came here for the Arsenal game, and I'm quite happy that there was a delay because of the socks, because the DJ was amazing. I had a great time.
Someone else said that as well, actually.
It was amazing, because, you know, if you close your eyes and you didn't like, even if you didn't like football, you would have thought, wow, you know, I had a bit of a dance, and that's the experience I think we need to create. We need to create a safe experience, inclusive experience, one that, you know, kids can come to, you know, women, men, all backgrounds. You know, that's what I see for women's football. I think it's really, you know, amazing to see, you know, all of these people, and I think that's going to be the future. It's
really nice to know that boys will grow up seeing the women's game as much as the men's game, and it will become the norm for them. My next audience question for you is, if you had the chance to start your career again and play in this era, would you?
Play in this era?
As in start now, yeah, if you could be starting.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean...
who was that from?
That's a good question.
It was a good question. Who was that from? Oh, hello. Very good question.
Future journalist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people ask me, do I miss playing? And I don't miss playing because I feel like I had a really good innings, particularly with Chelsea. But to be able to play now in front of, sold out stadiums, of course, like I would bite your arm off for that chance. I only got the chance to play at Stamford Bridge once, and we got smashed 4-0 from Wolfsburg. So it wasn't, the best day of my career. Yeah, of course, I would do that, and to do it with Chelsea would be amazing.
Now, I also have to ask you, how has it been like since you stopped playing?
Yeah, so as I said, when I retired, I'd already had sort of lots of things set up for me to do. Okay. Because I was so scared of not having anything to do.
Well, I was going to ask you that because it's a hard transition.
No, it's really hard. It's really hard. And I speak to players all the time and say, listen, start preparing well in advance. Okay. Right? Because it is scary. Your whole life you play football, you're defined by football. And then you got to, start again, really, in many ways. I was lucky that I started doing media before I retired, whilst I was playing. Yeah. So that I could sort of continue that. I was studying, I started studying, did a master's whilst I was at Juventus, actually. I started my master's. But again, that prepared me for the path that I was going to go down in terms of, executive management. So I would definitely, for any sort of young girls who play, don't forget your education.
Well, I was about to say, if anyone had an excuse to stop, it was you, and you've got a master's.
Yeah, no, but, oh dear. I think it's important. Do you know what I mean? Because you're one injury away from sometimes it being done. Yeah. Right? So, whether it's injury, whatever, it's important to not put all your eggs in the football basket. Yeah. Listen, focus on your football and do your thing and give it your all. But I still think it's important to have other interests and education so that you've got a fallback as well.
Eni, you are fantastic. I've absolutely loved it. I know you need to run off.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
So thank you so much. Guys, can we just give Eni a massive cheer? This podcast is brought to you by Skoda, the official car partner of Chelsea Women and proud supporters of women's sport. Whether you're playing five-a-side after work, cheering the kids on from the sidelines on a Saturday morning, or gathering with your mates to watch the big leagues at the weekend, Skoda's the perfect companion for your everyday adventures. Zip around town in the fully electric Enyaq, or give the squad a lift home in the all-new 7-seater Kodiaq. There's something in the range to suit teams of all shapes and sizes. Don't just take my word for it. Search the Skoda range today to jump in and see for yourself. Next up, joining us tonight, we've got not one, but two special guests. One of them is an OG of the Chelsea women's team. He managed the club in 2005 and has seen the club transform into a totally different beast since then. Now working as a scout for the men's team, it is Shaun Gore. Give him a round of applause. Hey! And our second guest is a Chelsea legend, a former captain of the club. She joined the Blues in 2014 and played here right up until her retirement with 2 WSL titles and 2 FA Cups under her belt during that time. It is, of course, Katie Chapman. You knew. Hey! Thank you. How are you both? I got your laundry question in.
Brilliant. I just said to her down there, I was like, I'm so happy you asked that question.
I mean, she was a little bit shocked. She's like, who told you that?
She ain't got any better, she just said.
Shaun, how are you?
I'm really well, thank you. And you?
I am very well. I can't imagine what it's like being you and coming here, seeing this, seeing the crowds and seeing the transition of it all. Have you just felt like it's all a bit surreal?
Yeah, after 31 years at the club, you kind of take things for granted a little bit. But I was just on the train on the way in, and when I was manager, we were lucky if we got 50 to 100 people. But just sitting on the train and seeing families, boys and girls and mums and dads in the Chelsea kits, it's just phenomenal, and it's just a testament to how much it's grown.
Yeah. Katie, were you a bit surprised?
I've obviously been around the game and
Yeah.
been to big games and stuff like that, so I've seen the crowds obviously over the years start to build up and grow.
But 2
listen,
hours before.
It's amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing. I think it's amazing to see that we've got a sellout here today, and be here and experience it as well. Like, I love the side of being a fan as well now,
Yeah.
and being in that sort of situation. I've got my head around not playing, so I'm there now. I'm actually a fan and I'm enjoying it. So it's great.
Well, Shaun, let's start with you. You had a major role in the Chelsea women's team, being part of Chelsea FC. How did it all come about?
Quite how long you got? I think it was just at the end of 2003 that I got a call from the FA saying, look, we need to start thinking about how we're going to transition centre of excellencies and girls football and stuff like that. So they were looking at making some funding going into different clubs and stuff. Mm-hmm. And there were two bits of the club that weren't actually part of the club. It sounds a bit weird, but that was the ladies team and the disabled team. So Mr. Bates at the time had allowed them to play under the auspice of just go out and play and have some fun, and then we'll see what happens as we go from there. Obviously, new ownership came in. And it was basically, can we take them in house? And that was my job, to bring both of those teams in, which was difficult.
Yeah.
Coming from what was purely a grassroots amateur club. I mean, Tony's in the audience, started it up. So fair play to Tony starting it up. And unless you've actually been in that role, you don't actually understand the commitment that's needed. Tony was saying to me before we came on stage, he worked 40 hours, and that's probably on top of his full-time job as well. So it was about giving them support and so on. And I was saying to Tony, we hadn't made those changes, because I became manager in 2005, and we were at the bottom of the league, we were struggling, and we knew we were going to go into a playoff.
Okay.
So we got Liverpool in the playoff. So we did improve as the season went on. Sorry, I'm not used to this, Mike. We did improve as the season went on, and we ended up playing Liverpool in the playoff, and we won 4-1. And then we, gradually brought in some new players and so on and so on. So it was a transition from amateur grassroots into having a little bit more support, a little bit of funding that came in from the community programme and the foundation at the time. And it was the start of the transition. It was the start of everything for Chelsea. If we'd have got, I was thinking about it, if we hadn't made that change, we hadn't have beaten Liverpool, we would have gone down a league. And it may not have been here at this particular time. It's just all ifs and buts, but it's fate. So fortunately, I sacked myself a couple of seasons later on. Job was too big. The full-time job was too big. And obviously we've ended up here today with Emma doing her thing.
Yeah, definitely doing her thing. Can you paint a very quick picture of what the facilities were like, what Annie touched on, lunches, and just little things that obviously now we probably all take for granted, but that was a big deal back then that they didn't have?
When I first started to talk about looking at the first team, the ladies' first team, they trained at Feltham Community College. I don't know if anyone's from Feltham and they know the facilities there. It was a basic AstroTurf pitch.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was an AstroTurf pitch. It was what it was. And it was difficult to get to, just like in those times. It was really, really difficult. So I remember my first training session, actually. So my philosophy as a coach was always show them what you want them to do.
Okay.
So I've decided I'm going to demonstrate what I want them to do, and this was a really bubbly group of girls, and so I decided I'm going to do some quick play and try and get the ball out of feet and shoot on sight. And I brought in a very good friend of mine, Ian Woodruff, who runs the international department here at Chelsea, as an assistant coach, and Pete Stewart as well as an assistant operations person. And so I basically said, look, this is what I want you to do. I stepped in, beat a player coming in, and I've hit this 30-yard shot into the top right-hand corner. Now, I'm a centre-back. Katie will tell you, I'm a centre-back. I've never done that in my life. So I went, that's what I want you to do. And they all looked at me like that, and they went, wow. So hopefully the respect was there. But the facilities weren't there. So we ended up moving from Hampton and Richmond, which I think probably Tony was influential in making sure we played there. But we ended up going to Met Police, which was a fantastic facility. The pitch was unbelievable. And then to Mitcham, and then the first Women's Super League came. So facilities were poor, they improved dramatically.
Well, I'm going to come to you, Katie, because it was 10 years later that you joined. What was it like when you first arrived?
Obviously, we were at the training ground, so we were training there. We were still training just evenings, so we're doing Tuesday and Thursday evenings on the AstroTurf. And at 10 o'clock, the lights would go out and you walk back to the car in the dark. So we experienced sort of that. But, I was used to that because that's what we did before. So when I was at clubs before, we did exactly the same thing. We trained in the evenings 2 nights a week, and then you went home 10 o'clock. Yeah, the lights were out. And so we were used to it. It was nothing different.
A little torch.
It was nothing different.
And you came from Arsenal. So what was that transition like? And I guess, how did the fans react? How did they welcome you or not?
I don't remember it being too bad, actually, because I think that season at Arsenal, I think about 7 players left the club and went to different points. And I remember moving over with Gilly Flaherty, so we both left Arsenal and come over together. And it was just, I think for me personally, it was a transition I needed to make. I think at Arsenal, I won quite a lot there. And when I knew Emma was taking over the role at Chelsea, I knew exactly what she was like as a coach and as a person. So I worked with her obviously at Arsenal. I went over to Chicago as well. She was the manager over there. So coming to the club was a no-brainer. And for me, I was at a period of where I want a challenge. I want something new, and I want to be part of this growth. Because knowing Emma, I knew what she was going to do, and I wanted to be part of that.
How do you look back at your time at the club, especially seeing where it is now? Is it nostalgic?
Do you know what? I loved my time at the club. I loved everything about my whole career. I have no regrets at all. Would I like to play longer? Absolutely. Could it take years off me to come back and play again? Yeah, absolutely. But I also say in this day and age how hard it is as well, in terms of social media and those sorts of things. Would I have managed that very well as a person? So there's all different, highs and lows. But would I have loved to have played in a sellout state? Absolutely.
Can I just jump in, just for any Chelsea fans, all you guys in the audience? When I was manager of the ladies team, when we played Arsenal, my philosophy was to stop this lady on my left-hand side. We failed abysmally all the time because she was just unbelievable. The intensity in the play, the movement, the physicalness, you were a beast.
I paid him to say that, by the way.
I mean, touching on the social media aspect, I remember speaking to Fran, and she was saying, Fran's probably the first or one of who got catapulted by fame in the women's game, and we saw how much it affected her. It's really hard, social media. And she said something really interesting to me. She said, when it comes to reviews, people are more likely to take the time to write something negative about their experience than something positive. And she now has to remember that on social media. But it is it's a huge side of the game that I guess back then, for all the kind of things that we've got in the game now, that must have been quite nice, that you could play and that was blocked away. You didn't have to deal with that.
It was so nice. And I say all the time, we've got so many stories. I would have been in so much trouble if we had social media and all that stuff back then. Oh my goodness, I would have been in so much trouble. So thank God we never. But when I met up, when I meet up with past players and we just talk about stories and stuff like that only we know, not the rest of the world knows. And that is really something special. So I think for me, going back to that and just, it makes it even more special.
I wanted to ask you one of your favourite moments in blue, but I'm guessing captaining the Blues FA Cup final. What was that like?
Unbelievable. I think going, to play the first game, women's game at Wembley, and playing an FA Cup final there, and being, the captain and leading the team out onto that pitch. I've got my kids sitting in the crowd also watching mummy, which, was really proud of me. Especially, I've got 3 boys. As you were talking about, we've changed the concept of what, women's football.
Yeah.
Football is just football. And that's how we should see it. If we love a team, we should love every team within that comes under that umbrella. So I think for me, being a mum and having 3 boys, that's one of my proudest moments, I think, that they don't bat an eyelid. They'll train with girls and turn around and go, oh my God, Mum, that girl was amazing. It won't even cross their mind to think they shouldn't be playing. So that's a proud moment for me. But walking out obviously at Wembley, I'll never ever forget it. I mean, and all I had in my mind, I think before that game is, I need to be up them stairs lifting that trophy. That was in my head the whole time. I cannot, lose this game. I need to be picking that trophy up. And that was, I think, what drove us and the team that, first game there, we wanted to win.
I love that, and I love that it's just normal for your 3 boys, and that is the hope for the generations, that it will just be normal. We see female tennis players, male tennis players, and we'll just do it all the same. I've got to ask you, Shaun, as well. What were your proudest moments in blue?
Definitely the win against Liverpool, keeping the team in the Premier League as it was then. Obviously, proud moment, signing Ennie, Casey. We also signed players like Sean Larkin, Danny Buitt, Kylie Davis, Dunya Susie. One of my first signings was Claire Rafferty from Millwall. Some really international players now. So I'm really proud of that moment. Ellen White was. I saw Ellen White play for Arsenal at 15 over at Cobham, and I stood on the side of the pitch and I was like, oh my God, what have I just witnessed? She just literally blew every other team apart, and purely by fluke, I was standing there putting balls, bibs and cones in the car like you do, and I just bumped into her dad and I just said, look, just to let you know, your daughter is really special. She's a special talent, and of course, I said if she was in blue, she'd be playing in our first team. So that was my opening gambit, hoping it might resonate with him. But and he went, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. And then he phoned me up a couple of months later and said, was you serious? And I went, absolutely. And then the story begins. And obviously Ellen goes on to do what Ellen's done. Fantastic achievement.
How did it feel watching her lift that trophy? Did you get emotional?
Well, having given her a Premier League debut, I think so. And you're never going to meet a nicer person as well, by the way. She's just, Kate, I tell you, she's just phenomenal. But to see her grow and develop, and I even messaged her dad and said, well, what a fantastic achievement, she's done it all. And he came back and said, it's been 25 years, and I'm pleased that you're a part of it at the start. And for me, that was an emotional moment. So it was. She's a special player.
Well, we are slowly eating up our time, which is so sad. But before we finish, we've got a special guest in the audience, Caroline Barker, who's over here. She played for the Chelsea ladies team between 1994 and 2002. So can we give Caroline a little cheer? She's sat right here next to Tony. Caroline, we're all talking about Chelsea today, and we're here to watch them play against Barcelona. Can you tell me a little bit what Chelsea was like when you were playing back in 1994?
Yeah, a million miles away from thankfully from where it is now. But I've got to be grateful for the guy sat next to me. I'm probably 2 generations too early for the football that is happening now. And we were really just a grassroots football team. But I think, to be honest, Tony was quite visionary in what he wanted to achieve with it. And although we were completely amateur, we all had full-time jobs. And I think the thing Tony wanted to make it as professional in the amateur world as he could, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we were training at Feltham on the AstroTurf. we didn't have to take our own kit because we didn't have kit for training. So we were turning up as a ragtag and bobtail of whatever your own training kit you had. But we were very fortunate because Tony and Dave, the other chap who were running the team, their long-suffering wives had to take our match kit home and do all the washing. So we did have white socks. We were fine.
And you were a policewoman. You were a full-time policewoman, and then playing football after work.
Yeah, when I could, because at the time when I joined Chelsea in '94, I was a uniformed sergeant in Wandsworth. And it was quite challenging because I was on shifts. So if I could make the training, great, I would make the training. Had a few challenges with one person in particular who I shan't name. And we had an offence in the police, an internal offence of making yourself unfit for duty. And I dared to get myself injured. And had quite a serious ankle injury that ultimately ended up in surgery. And as a consequence of that, I was investigated for making myself unfit for duty.
By playing football?
For playing football, yeah, how very dare I.
That's just crazy, isn't
it? But they sent a couple of people along to watch a football match to see if I was playing. I wasn't. I think I was standing on the sidelines next to Tony. Managed to get myself fit and do quite a lot of work with a wonderful woman called Jenny Archer, who was a fitness and, a personal trainer type thing. So we did a lot of work with her. Got myself back to full fitness, played in a pre-season friendly, and a rather charming Polish goalkeeper broke my other leg in pre-season. So that was interesting. But it was a million miles away from where the Chelsea team is today. And I think it's absolutely fantastic the journey that Tony took us on to what has now become the norm. And I think touching on a couple of the comments that Eni and Katie have said, I think there was quite an innocence to our game at the time. Yeah. So the social media side, any of the vitriol that any professional sports person has to put up with now, we were all shielded from that by Tony and Dave. We didn't have smartphones. So we literally turned up, trained, played, and we were done in terms of that. But how they manage what comes through on social media now is pretty incredible.
It is. Oh, thank you. Caroline Barker, everyone. Shaun, Katie, I've got some audience questions. Katie, someone in the audience has said, do you have any wants or yearnings to manage in the WSL?
No.
Who asked that question?
I've seen what they go through, not a chance. Oh my God. Listen, I think, you've got to look at the backroom staff because, you look at us on the pitch and, oh my God, the work that goes in behind the scenes that no one sees, honestly, as a manager and all the backroom staff is unbelievable. They put the hours in and no one sees that. So, no, definitely not.
Shaun, can you reflect on the journey that the club has been on? And especially now you're working as a scout in the men's team, you've seen it all. Can you reflect a little bit on that journey?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've changed ownership a couple of times in my 30 years. Huge change. The club were really, really strong advocates of bringing in an overseas player. Before we signed an American international called Laurie Fair. It took probably 7 or 8 months for the paperwork to get done. And the club led on that. The club were really, really prominent on that. And I think she was probably one of the first, if not the first, American player to come over and play who was part of their World Cup team. Prior to Laurie, no one probably knows this, but you probably don't know this either. Prior to Laurie coming on board, we had some conversations. I had some conversations with an American player called Tiffany Milbrett, and also had some conversations with a Canadian player called Christine Sinclair. Didn't quite work out, unfortunately. paperwork was the problem again, but it would have been great to have got Tiff and Sink over as well. I mean, Sinclair is just phenomenal, isn't she? So that was the start of it. So the club have been really, really strong when it comes to that. Yes, of course, it's transitional. Things don't happen overnight, and the cogs of Chelsea are always methodical, strategic, and sometimes that can be, it can take time. But, just introducing the training ground, accessing the hydrotherapy pool, accessing the food, accessing the men's building, etc., that's all come, and that's been a massive change. Yeah. And when I was manager, I always say this, the players I had were really technically gifted. They were technical players, they were really good. It was just the intensity and the fitness, obviously training twice a week and playing on a weekend. Now they're training every day. They're resting, they're doing everything professionally. And you can see that intensity to press off the front foot, that intensity to close, that movement of the pivot, all of that kind of thing that comes along now, it's just unbelievable. And I sit there and when I watch women's games, I go, if only we had that back when I was a manager, I'd love to have coached that.
Yeah.
But you coach with what you've got. And we had so much spirit in those days. Some really, really strong players. And it's a massive change. Obviously, the men's first team's transitioning as well. So we're just hoping Emma can finish off this season with a real big high.
Yes.
Come on, you Chelsea, come on.
Yeah.
That's what we want, come on.
Thank you so much to both of you. I feel like I could have talked to you for so much longer. There were so many more questions, but we are running out of time. So can we say a big thank you, a big cheer to Eniola Aluko, Shaun Gore, and of course, Katie Chapman and Caroline Barker and Tony Farm. Thank you so much. This has been our first live episode. Thank you to all of you in the audience for joining us and supporting us on this podcast, on this special edition of We Are Chelsea. The official podcast of Chelsea Women is brought to you in association with Skoda, the official car partner of Chelsea Women, and they are proud supporters of women's sport. Remember to get in touch with us. Drop us an email at wearechelsea@chelsea.com, and we will see you all next time. Bye-bye.